Good morning and welcome to the month of March, St. Louis. And we've got a little bit of news here as the Cardinals kind of shocking everybody and putting out that they have now agreed to a 2-year contract extension with manager Ali Marmal with a club option for a third year in 2029. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Hunter Mulholland. This is Cardinals Central. Instant Reaction will be joined shortly by Brendan Schaefer here in just a moment. But our initial reactions, Hunter, when we first saw this news about, 29 minutes ago, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I was getting up out of bed and I happened to come across my phone, and the first thing I see is the Cardinals extending Ollie for 2 years and with a club option for one more. And my first thought is, well, I mean, you're kind of trying to set a direction, so I guess it makes sense to have somebody that you think is going to be trusted at the helm. So if that's the path that Heim Bloom has decided upon, and that's a path that the DeWitts have decided upon, to say, you know what, he has done a decent enough job with a roster that has not been up to par with Cardinals standards in the last few years. And obviously there's going to be discourse here about people being mad and irritated. I think it's always good to have a manager that is going to be here longer. When you start looking at those guys managing on contract years, it kind of looks like, well, if things don't go their way early, do they check out? Do they start to think, you know what, maybe they're not going to bring me back after the way that this year started, and does this kind of affect my role as the manager of this team?
Yeah, I do think that's kind of how we have to separate this, because there's the conventional wisdom part that we've talked about, and we've batted this around before. There's the conventional wisdom aspect, and then there's your point, which is kind of the more just like baseball purity point, which is the conventional wisdom is don't have a lame duck manager. That's the conventional wisdom that we've all been kind of wondering about Ollie's contract status, is don't have a lame duck manager. But after we got through the winter, I thought maybe they were just going to bite the bullet on that. It appears that's obviously not the clue, and now we're going to have the reaction from the other side. Speaking of the reaction from the other side, that's Hunter's first thoughts. We're now going to bring in our Cardinals insider, Brendan Schaefer, who's going to join us now here on Cardinals Instant Reaction. Schaefer, we were just reacting about 30 minutes ago. The news came through. St. Louis is reacting to it. Jeremy Davis says, hold on, it's March 1st, not April 1st. Shaking my head. Brendan Schaefer, your reaction to a 2-year extension plus an option year for Cardinals manager Ali Marmal.
Yeah, and I tweeted this out. I think it makes all the sense in the world. I heard you guys talking about the notion of a lame duck thing. Like, that's not really the timeline we're on here with the Cardinals. Like, if they were in a position to totally, restructure and change things and go for it, like they wanted a different manager to be able to accomplish that, maybe then you have that conversation about identifying, okay, has Ollie Marmol won enough? Has he done enough with the pieces he's had to have that be your guy? But I think it's very clear where the Cardinals are. And I've thought all along that Ollie Marmol would actually be a really good fit for where they're heading. Is a guy that came up through the ranks of minor league baseball, has a player development background. And now you've got all these young players that you're trying to usher in the next era of Cardinals baseball and get the most out of. I think Ollie Marmol, as much as, I mean, there will be fans who kind of look sideways at this move, Ollie Marmol's a really good fit for that, in my opinion. This doesn't surprise me. I would have been surprised if there wasn't an extension announced at spring training, honestly. The length of it, exact terms of it, I wouldn't have been able to guess at, but the 2-year thing is pretty common. And then the terms with an option kind of can make this interesting as to kind of where the Cardinals are a year or two from now, and what they decide to do in terms of ownership reinvesting in the payroll and trying to make a go of being a contender again in the NL Central. We know that's not where they are this year. This didn't need to be something hanging over what they're looking to do, because internally they're very pleased with Ollie Marmol and believe he can be an agent for getting them where they want to go in this next iteration.
And we got Team Big V here on the chat, and I think he sums it up pretty well. A player development guy managing a rebuilding team makes sense to me. And to your point, B-Shape, I think you're right. It lines up. And I don't know about you guys, but just hearing Ali Marmol talk to the media since this beginning of spring training, that sounds like a guy who legitimately is enjoying this season as a coach, because getting to work with young guys, getting to build this team up, in a new way, he sounds legitimately energized by that prospect. So to your point, B-Shape, to Team Big V's point, I think he really is, for how the Cardinals sit right now, he is a great fit for what they want to do.
I think there were aspects of Ollie Marmal's job over the last couple of years, where the team is struggling. They're trying to figure it out. You're kind of in the middle. You've got a lot of veterans around. And so there's that undercurrent of expectation of like, we don't want to squander, our opportunity with a Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras and Arenado's still kicking. Like there is that undercurrent of, we need to try to, go balls to the wall and win some baseball games. And I think that's probably been a challenge that Ollie Marmol, never complains about, because he's thrilled to have the role that he has, and he's, going to make the most of it no matter what. But I think if you step back and you go, man, there were definitely some difficulties where we constantly were talking about this being a young team. It was, and yet you had those pieces that were not young. They were on the tail end of their career, trying to get one more time as a winner. And yet, final year of John Mozeliak, the table would have been set to commit then to, let's just call it what it is. We're not going to say the rebuild word, but you all are going to know that's what it is. The proof's going to be in the pudding. There was kind of a 1 foot in, 1 foot out mentality. Not on purpose. Mo tried to trade Arenado and failed to do it. There were reasons for that. And then 2025 certainly softened Arenado's stance on where he would be willing to go. I think it solidified even further that the Cardinals really were going to need a step back before they could step forward. And so when Bloom comes in, everything aligns to actually do this in a genuine way without any confusion about what they're looking to do here. And so I think it actually, you mentioned Ollie kind of being refreshed. I think it is. I think this is as much kind of excitement and joy that he'll have for the role, because it's very clear what is going to be expected. And he also, I think, is eager to try to prove some people wrong, that this team can win. You can kind of have that us against the world mentality. Cardinals posted a video from yesterday from like some batting practice drills, some different things they were doing competitively on the diamond, and they had different guys mic'd up, and it was kind of cool to see a little bit of a peek behind the curtain there. That's the kind of stuff you get to see down in spring training, which is why I always tell people to go, because it's really so cool to see it all unfiltered. But I at the end of that, Ollie's kind of talking about, this is kind of the stuff that can help us win. And I saw a comment, I forget who said it, but there were college baseball vibes to what they saw from the Cardinals. And I was like, there is maybe a little bit of something to that. And they want to kind of capture that and see how far it can take them. But at the end of the day, it is going to be about developing the guys and trying to see how many of these 22 to 25, 26-year-old players can actually be on the Cardinals the next time they're good. And maybe that's sooner than later, but I feel like that is an energizing challenge for Ollie Marmol compared to kind of having to navigate some more treacherous waters the last couple of years on probably knowing they didn't have enough horses to do what some of the veterans in the room might have wanted to see, but also not really being able to fully commit to, hey, we're going to have younger guys and give them opportunities to spread their wings, because we know the standings may reflect it for a year or two, and we're okay with that. Now I think that's where they are. And as a manager, that clarity, I think, is something that's going to be really effective for him in the way that he does his job.
I want to get your guys' thoughts on this one too, because Bill Downton's in here, and he's been very consistent in the chat that he's not supporting St. Louis financially as long as Ollie Marmol is the manager. I'm seeing a lot of responses like that on the Cardinals Twitter and Facebook posts. Here's the fact of the matter: as much as ticket sales do matter when your TV deal is complete ass, the Cardinals will make a lot more money becoming a winning baseball team, to Brendan's point, in this rebuild, then they will lose money by old people not wanting to watch Ollie Marmol manage this baseball team. That's like, if we want to
I don't understand anyway. I
don't get it either. But if we let's take their opinion at face value that they will not support the Cardinals financially. The Cardinals will be a better franchise, be a better business model by just winning games under a manager they believe can actually coach these guys up. Then they will just, meandering on, signing signing the names that people want, and Albert Pujols. The fact that people are bringing in the Yachty and Pujols stuff on this is kind of ridiculous to me.
I want to ask if that's what it is, and I want to get Hunter's thoughts on this too. Is it just the fact that Yachty and Albert are like kind of pseudo available, and so people saw that and were hoping that would be the case? I think the comment here from Joshua is solid, where he mentions, Albert wants to manage and have control like it's 06 and not 2026. He'll have a hard time getting the freedom he wants in today's game. I think the same would be true of Yachty. Those two are great baseball minds, but like that gap from I was a superstar player, so I know how this works, to now I have the role of manager. I'm not saying that both wouldn't be able to get it done. I think there's a weird sort of pressure with the notion of doing it in the place you played, and I'm not so sure that it's the best idea in the world. And I also don't think like that put that in a compartment. And then I also don't think that I've seen anything from Ollie Marmol that people should be upset about. But I know they've lost more games. Again, if we universally agree that John Mozeliak was just, sitting on his hands at the end of his tenure and just holding things back, we literally spent a year where nothing happened. And we were watching, Eric Fetty. We spent a year where nothing happened in order to just let Mozeliak be able to finish unceremoniously, but also not get fired. So it's like, what can you expect of Ollie Marmol during that? I think is a fair question that I'm actually asking. It's not hypothetical. I want people in the chat to tell me if you're anti the Ollie extension and you're Bill Downton and saying, I don't want to watch the team until he's gone. Why? What has he done that really makes you feel that way? I'm not asking from a place of like trying to make fun of you, although but I do want to just know. It would help me to understand. So, Hunter, I want to throw it to you and get your thoughts on that notion. The Yachty Albert stuff and the Ollie stuff in general, when it comes to people feeling so strongly in some cases about this being not a great move for the Cardinals.
Well, over the past couple of years, when after Albert and Yachty retired in 22, there was always the floater of, okay, well, when are they going to get their opportunities? When are they going to get their chances to manage? They've gotten some opportunities in the DR, in Puerto Rico, in Venezuela. They've gotten these chances to manage. They've had success in those levels of baseball. They have. Albert Pujols had a very long interview with the Padres for that position that he didn't end up getting. And it almost feels like something is holding it back. And I think it's to your point. They want that, or specifically to the point of the commenter that I'm blanking on the name now, but he wants control like La Russa had. And that's just not how, Joshua Meyer, that's just not how today's game is set up. Managers don't have the same control that a Hall of Fame manager in the 2000s did versus now just because they were the star player of the franchise. And to your point of doing it in the city that you played either your entire career or had the most success in, that's a lot of pressure because like they already have this vision of you, and if you struggle, that's a lot of heat, and you don't necessarily want to flip, and the manager is almost 9 times out of 10 the scapegoat, and it's
for
just
sure.
it's
Nobody's coming to the ballpark to watch the manager manage,
right?
Like, that's
at no point. Even when they had a Hall of Fame manager, we were coming there to watch Hall of Fame players. Like that's the bottom line, and that's people. I inevitably think when people answer your question, Bishop, of what they don't like about Ollie Marmol, they will inevitably, I believe, give you half an answer, which is they will tell you that he failed to develop X players, and they will fail to then list the Y players that he obviously has been a big part of their development. That's the thing I think people still somehow ignore is you might fine, bitch about what Ollie Marmol is as a manager. But when we talk about like being a manager and being a coach, there is no doubt in my mind that he is a very good baseball coach.
Yeah.
Sure, he's young. Talk about the managing thing. I think if you really have a problem with how he's managed the bullpen the last 2 seasons, I don't see how you can get there.
You don't know ball. I mean,
yes.
Literally, I am making fun of you. You don't know the sport if you think he isn't managing the bullpen effectively.
And so you combine that with the fact that we know he is an above average coach of baseball technical things. Like he is. We know that when he helped rebuild this team defensively when Mike Schilt was the manager and he was a coach. We know that he's become a better manager. The fact that people still use the playoffs when he was the youngest manager in baseball, taking his first shot out in the playoffs, and you want to bitch about that. People will refuse to look at the last year and a half plus of what he's done, and they only want to look at small sample sizes. And I don't think this is going to change that, but I do think we are dealing with a fan base that is ignoring some obvious things to continue on their pity party about the manager they don't like.
There are some good comments in here, though, that I want to get to. A few things. Space Magic mentions that the thing he doesn't like about the extension isn't really about Ollie. It's about the fact that you haven't then coupled it by kind of sending a message to the fan base of kind of what else is coming. Extend Mason Wynn, Herrera, Burleson as some examples. Wanted a player extended, and I made the case for that before the Donovan trade, that you could ink a couple of guys that you know are going to be around. You don't have any superstars, so to be able to do that, you're not going to spend all that much. Like, you're not signing $100 million contract for any of these guys. And with guys that have control available, like Mason Wynn's under control still. So that would be a reason his wouldn't approach 100 million. Like, there'd be a lot of pre-RB years that you would be buying out. And so it would be reasonable, but it would send a really positive message. They traded Donovan, and so that's where I felt like that was clear. Okay, we're kicking this timeline down a little bit further because we don't even think Donovan's going to be a part of it, and we'd have him for the next 2 years. So I thought that was the message they sent there. Don't disagree with the comment, but I think it's interesting. Let's talk about the poll. A lot of people using as justification, MLB players anonymously polled by The Athletic said they didn't want to play for Ollie. Cards in 28 mentions what I agree with. They didn't even know him. It was conducted with 30 to 40 players. The Athletic beat writer in each town had to just go and like get a few, like, I got to do this thing. Can you give me a quote? It was not in any way, something that you should, especially for the negative stuff where, a teammate 3 lockers down in Pittsburgh or in, San Diego told the Athletic beat writer, yeah, that St. Louis guy. And then the other guy heard him and said, oh yeah, just put him down for me too. That's literally how it happened. You can believe me or not believe me, but and then, so Ollie got 5 or 6 examples of, out of that group. And so he was barely the most or whatever it was, or tied for the most. Come on. They don't even know the guy's name. That's not a realistic way to measure whether or not he is valid as the Cardinals manager. And this is a fair comment as well from George. How would someone know that Pujols isn't capable of managing in 2026? There's no evidence that that's true. Don't disagree, but the Cardinals have a manager. Like, that continues to be like, to have a manager, and they like him. And I don't see evidence to support the idea that they shouldn't. I'm not saying you're not allowed to not like the manager. Like, everybody can have their opinions, but I can have mine, and I feel like mine's pretty informed, having, been up close to it on a number of occasions. I've seen how he operates and how he thinks, and I have appreciation for it. So we'll see how that turns out in this rebuild, but I just want to get some of that out because I asked for comments. They were giving them. I think some of that is, is relevant to what we're talking about here. Not everybody has to agree, but I think to take it so far in the other direction as to say, I'm not watching this team until he's gone. It's interesting to me.
I love overreactions. Nick Lauman, why don't you guys realize that this guy is a bad omen for baseball? I forgot to read the line in the latest ESPN piece that the upcoming CBA disagreements are all because of Ali Marmol. That's why the lockout's happening, guys. It's Ali Marmol. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's his reason that the Dodgers keep signing everybody and that everybody's angry and upset because of the deferred money. It's all Ollie's fault, right?
You guys didn't know this. Ollie actually bankrupted all the media rights. He tanked it all. I'm sorry. That's why there's no money for 14 teams in baseball this year. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I would like to say that I don't hate the move. I actually do I'm on Brennan's side here. I like the move. I just did not like the prospect when we went to winter warm-up this year and we talked with Ollie, we talked with Heim, we talked with the DeWitts. There was a question asked about Ollie's extension and nobody had a clear straight shot answer. Nobody was kind of just dancing around, giving a straight answer. a lot of it was not necessarily knowing if they wanted to extend him. And now you get to a point, it's March 1st, you're in spring ball. How much of it is seeing him around the guys, around that young group down in Florida, on top of, being able to keep a team that is just doing barely enough over the last couple of years, signing just the bare minimum of, okay, well, let's fix this, and let's bring in Lance Lynn. Not any hate to Lance Lynn, but Lance Lynn on the back end of his career. Let's bring it. We're going to trade for Eric Fetty. We're going to keep Michaelis around. Just kind of doing just the bare minimum to stay afloat. And he's able to, I mean, going into the season, he's got a 325, 323 record. Obviously, that's not fantastic by St. Louis standards, but there's got to be something to note of the context of that record and what the issues were with the organization during those years.
That's the thing. It's like we all can now acknowledge it. And I know some people don't like that. We've been talking about this, whether or not you start the clock in 2016 or 2019 or after COVID, the organization was no longer doing their job in building a winning team. Like, that's just a full stop. This isn't even a theory anymore. We know this for a fact. We've seen all the reporting. We know the lack of coaches in the minors, the fact that they didn't have a catching instructor to work with all the important prospects they had. Like, we know the team wasn't doing enough to set this organization up for success. And so just to use the record against Marmal is ignoring all the other context around it. And that's a little bit problematic. Speaking of context, great one here says they blame him for every bad thing. Let's just say the players aren't hitting. They blame Ollie, but that's the player's fault, not Ollie. And it's also a fault of an organization that kept changing out hitting coaches, and I don't think had a consistent philosophy across a multi-year span at any point in time.
Yeah, and look, like this comment from Maryland, a manager is rarely solely at fault for bad seasons. The manager has to deal with the roster he gets. Blame has to be placed higher up. And I couldn't agree more with that. And the guy who did it is gone. Mm-hmm. Like, I do think there's some residual anger and angst from Cardinals fans about the fact that, like, we're used to seeing a great team, and right now it's not a great team. And I just am mad in general. So every move that happens until it's better is going to be, an aspect of that sticks with people. Bloom might have jumped the gun. Bloom should have waited until midseason to make a decision. I want to address this because it's related to what Hunter said about at winter warmup. It seems like they didn't know. They knew already at winter warmup, but they ain't going to tell you. They didn't have a reason to tell people and because they're probably going to be negotiating, and it's probably easier to negotiate when you're in the same city, Jupiter, for a month and a half, 2 months. They do all their extensions in spring training. Ollie Marmal's previous extension came during spring training. Miles Michaelis, when they extended him, like, it's just extension time of year is in spring, and they're doing it still pretty early, where we've got almost a month remaining before the season begins. I think that Chaim Bloom, in taking over, like, you can even go back to a year ago when he knew he'd have his kind of like guardianship year of not really doing the job yet, but he's going to be watching and trying to think about what he wants for the team. He's evaluating beginning then and building a relationship with Ollie. And when people asked him, he always said, we work well together and we've had good conversations. And I think we're on the same page. Like, nothing that Chaim ever said led me to believe that they weren't going to be, at least like at the beginning of this, a good match. You could get down the road and we could see, okay, now we've worked with each other and there are some things that I want in a manager that we're not getting. And so I'll make a different decision, but he hasn't even been in the role yet. And so knowing what we know about Chaim Bloom's background, knowing what we know about Ollie's background, I always kind of thought that they would be a good batch. I didn't know for sure, but like when people would ask me, I'm like, I have no reason to believe that they would not be in concert with one another on the task at hand, which is to rebuild the team and to infuse the young talent. So with that in mind, I just think at winter warmup, it wasn't the time or place to say more about it than they did, because they hadn't probably had those negotiation type of conversations where you don't want to have leverage. Like if Chaim Bloom comes out and says, oh my gosh, we're extending Ollie, we're going to wait till we get it done in Jupiter, it's going to be great though. Then Ollie's like, well, man, Ollie's agent is probably doing backflips. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like businessy kind of stuff. There's no real conspiracy to it. And I just think that this was always the way that it was going to happen.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I like it from Skyboy. The game is managed very differently today than it used to be. Some fans take that as Ollie not knowing baseball. And we had somebody up here complaining that the Cardinals, they never have the hit and run. There's no speed. There's no excitement. That gets back to one of our earlier points of this show. Like, if you're not paying attention to what's coming out of Jupiter right now, then when again, new front office, new team, I do think some people might not like this. I do think we do have to kind of draw a hard line now between everything before this year and then everything after this year, because of how monumental the change has really been of John Mozeliak leaving and Chaim Bloom coming in. And so, like, the way he's talking about the athleticism, I mean, there was a whole article on, that Derek Gould did talking about how this is going to be a team that uses its athleticism. Mason Wynn's going to run more now that he's got hurt. They're going to take advantage of Victor Scott. Jordan Walker apparently is supposed to be stealing some bases for us this year. So this is a team that I understand why maybe in the past few years people have not liked the style that Ollie's coached, but I do think he was dealing with maybe some handcuffs that now, if not completely taken off, have at least been loosened. And so I expect something very different than what we've seen in the first few years from Ollie.
Yeah, it's not Whitey ball anymore.
No.
Like, the game has evolved from that. And I do find it funny. The Cardinals don't have a hit and run. I find that funny simply because just out of pure curiosity and me being bored, I was just scrolling through the hitting stats the other day. Victor Scott leads spring training with 2 sacrifice bunts, which is
Love
like,
that.
why are we sacrifice bunting in the spring?
Hey,
but
they're going to do it. He's going to lay him down because he might be able to bunt for a hit. He might be able to bunt to move somebody over. They're going to be about putting pressure on the defense and finding him extra ways to get involved. And, like, that is kind of the Whitey ball stuff that people beg for. Like, for as much as we can say Whitey ball is over, and it is, this year's Cardinals will have a few guys that'll be as close to it as you're going to find, that they'll be willing to deploy some of that stuff. And Ollie's the manager that talks ad nauseum about that being something he's happy to get involved with. So I don't understand comments like this. I've never seen a guy win less and get 2 contract extensions. How do you not understand it? Do you not pay attention? I'll tell it again, and this time you can listen with your ears, and then maybe you'll understand. John Mozeliak is gone. A lot of the angst you had can be attributed to his rosters. The guy managing the roster was only going to be able to do so much with them. There was an earlier comment mentioning they outperformed their Pythagorean win total expectation for the last 3 years under Oliver Marmol. There's not actually anything tangible to, and again, that sounds, people are going to say, you just cope for the manager, you cape for the team, like, whatever. That's fine if you feel that way. Show me some data other than, well, he just didn't win enough games. Because that is not a reason, in my opinion, that's valid to dog on Ollie Marmol as a manager, given everybody's universal agreement that the roster and the infrastructure of the organization under Mo at the end was deficient.
Like, that's just a fact at this point. And that's, and I get when people say, you know, they haven't developed certain players, but I think they ignore it's, you got to give it to both sides. If a player has gotten better over the last 3 or 4 years, like, you can't look at the haul they just got from Brendan Donovan and blame Ollie Marmol for other players and then not give him any credit for Brendan Donovan's growth the last 4 years as a Major League Baseball player. Like, you can't have it both ways, in my opinion. That's what Ollie does. He's good at working with young players. He's especially good at working with guys who are versatile defensively, I think. That's what he's good at. And he's one of the youngest managers in baseball. He was the youngest manager in the league, the last 4 years straight, until the Giants hired Vitale earlier this winter. So, I mean, he's one of the youngest managers in the league. And I think all of these things, all of this context matters when you talk about Ollie Marmol. None more so than your point, B. Schaefer, and that what I was just saying about this is a different Cardinals organization, and we have to evaluate their decision-making on a completely different spectrum than we were doing back in October.
I want to go back to...
Go ahead, Hunter. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I wanted to jump to Kurt Martin's comment again of I've never seen a guy win less with 2 contract extensions. Bud Black of the Rockies. I think he got 2.
It probably happens all the time.
And he managed the team for 9 years.
And by the way, a manager that people would clamor for, Skip Schumacher, managed the Marlins to a losing record 1 year. Like, I just refuse to believe without people telling me like this is really what it is that gets me about Ollie Marmol, that they're operating in good faith on some of this. I'm criticizing because I'm challenging you as the fan that hates the manager to give me something more. Give me something a little bit more concrete and tangible. Like Bill's going to say, you got to pump him up, your homeboys. Not really.
Why didn't we
No,
have this show
but
when Matheny was the manager? I could have dispelled that. I could have dispelled that rumor pretty quickly if this was just
Yeah.
a different manager at the time.
Yeah. No, I just am going to call it as I see it. I do like the extension. I like that Ollie's going to be sticking around. I like Ollie Marmol, but I also think that for where the Cardinals are, it's a reasonable move. Give me something tangible. The O'Neill situation. That put that one back up. That's an interesting topic. If you can throw that comment back up, Rock.
I got one similar to it right now.
You guys believe in managers publicly humiliating players. Like, if you can find the O'Neill one, that's the one. Wasn't about whether he should have been sent or not. It was about Marmol handled in the postgame. Yeah, and he was a new manager at the time, and I said he handled it wrong. And the next day, I thought he would kind of soften a little bit, and he didn't. He dug his heels in, and I thought it was weird. But at the same time, I think as a young manager in his first year, he was trying to establish the clubhouse that he wanted and that he believed would make the team successful, the culture. And there were reasons at that time that they didn't think O'Neill was, fitting within that. We've talked about this a lot, the O'Neill thing. And I would say, and I think Ollie has even said, like, there were maybe going to have been ways to do that a little bit differently, but I think he also sticks to his guns on the reason why behind it. And also, I don't think there's any debate. A lot of that was deflecting some of the blame off of his coach, who was for sure, I think, at fault as well for sending O'Neill in the first place, given all the surrounding circumstances. But there was never any finger pointed in that direction. And so, like, he's not batting 1,000, and I don't think anybody's batting 1,000 in their job. And I would agree that O'Neill thing was certainly one that I looked at sideways and thought that was strange. To Jerry's point, I think it did. It happened in his second year, but it was the first year it was the very beginning of the first year without Albert in the clubhouse, without Yachty in the clubhouse. It was a different dynamic. Like, he did have some really valuable training wheels that first year in 2022, where those guys kind of showed how the clubhouse could look. And I think a little bit, those guys are gone, and Ollie is trying to recapture as much of a semblance of that clubhouse as he could with the team he had. And not having those veterans there, he had to take on a little bit more of a role in establishing that. And there were things going on with O'Neill where, his agent, does he want him to be the center fielder because he's going toward free agency and center field's kind of available, but are the Cardinals really bought in that O'Neill is going to be able to hold up in center field? Okay, there's conversations that happen where, man, if you bust your ass and you own this role, then it's yours. And then second game of the year or whatever it was, he's walking around third base to try to score a key run in the game. Whatever you thought about it, he wasn't giving 100% going around. The player wasn't. I've never seen a guy be so far away from home plate on a key run like that. Whatever the reason was, he didn't get there and he didn't make it close. Ollie was pissed. I think it wasn't just about that moment, but it was about everything happening in the background of that. And I think also he saw the warning signs of what 2023 was about to be, and he was desperate to avoid it from going off the rails at the time. Like, we didn't maybe all know it yet, but there were probably things going on in the background where it was like, there are a lot of balls in the air with this team, and we're going to try to salvage it, and couldn't do it. But I'm not necessarily looking to say, like, that's the referendum on Ollie Marmol as a manager, because he said some words about Tyler O'Neill on that night and the next day that, I didn't necessarily totally agree with the way that it publicly played out. Like, I think now he would keep it in-house, but you live and you learn. But at least somebody came up with something that they criticized for him. It's not making excuses. I just told you, George, that I didn't agree with the handling of it, but it happened 3 years ago. So
also, at the same time,
say.
Like George says, why would the handcuffs be off now? Why were they on before? I don't understand the argument. Again, this gets entirely what Ben has been talking about of how much things are different now. And listen, there's some people close to the Cardinals who would refute that there were handcuffs placed on management by the front office over the last few years. I have people who would also report that there were some pretty strict decision.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Because I don't know if I agree with you.
I know, and there's some people out there. This is a dispute that has not been 100% confirmed, but the people that I've talked to who have been in the clubhouse have told me that that Ali Marmol did not have as much control over factors of the organization and the team as he would have liked.
With regard to what? Like, I don't think anybody's making his lineup for him, but that's
I don't think the lineup decision every day was his decision. I think there was a philosophy about the lineup and about decision making during the game, and he did not have 100% wide angle view to make every decision he possibly could. I'm not saying it was completely narrowed down to nothing, but I do think his decision making process was a little bit narrowed down, and some of the periphery was taken away. And I don't think that will be the case as much this year going forward.
And it's hard without like specifics, but like one thing I can think of that Ollie would get killed for and isn't his fault is when Sonny Gray tells him, "Hey brother, I'm done. What are you going to do?" Like why did Sonny only go 5 innings and 88 pitches? Well, he came to the dugout and told me he's done. And he's a veteran who, I mean, he's half naked right now. What do you want me to do? Like there are things that happen that Ollie Marmol just has to maneuver around. Right. And when your ace, your top paid pitcher says, "Hey, that's all I got, Skip," after 5 innings, after the game, you're going to try to carefully explain that, but you're paid to fall on the sword a little bit and talk around it and not throw him under the bus for that. Right. Like that's the job. So that's part of maybe what we're talking about too.
And I think that old Ollie, like, the way that he handled the O'Neill situation, maybe if something like that had happened early on in his career, there's a learning curve when it comes to managing in Major League Baseball. There absolutely is. And there's nothing that's hiding it. Right. And I think that when he handled the O'Neill situation, should a situation of my starting pitcher coming into the dugout and saying, I'm done for the day, maybe at a younger age, he would have thrown him under the bus. And maybe that's a sign of taking steps forward and taking progress and understanding, I can't just be going out here. This is detrimental to the clubhouse. I can't just go out and blast my players in the eyes of the media, because then I just turn everything into an issue versus being able to kind of handle it yourself. And if you have an issue, if Oliver Marmol had an issue with Sonny Gray, taking himself out after 80 pitches, I think last year he probably would have just had the conversation with him and would have been like, "Hey, we need more from you if we want to get to where we want to be."
But they didn't. And realistically, they didn't. Like that was just not a way that it was ever going to play out.
Guys, this show officially is going to do something pretty special. We're actually going to go to the future. We're actually going to go to the future. 12:30 a.m.
Worldwide here.
March 2nd. We're going to go to the future, and we're going to bring in Joe Roderick, who's live now with us from March 2nd in Japan. From the future, Joe Roderick joins.
And Rocky Olivian.
He's gone.
I wanted to make sure Joe was on the screen. Joe, live from Japan. You got woken up by my text to this news. Your thoughts on the extension for Ollie Marmol?
Come on, Haterade. Tell me why
first
it sucks.
of all, no.
Tell me why it's bad.
I love it. I every interaction I've had with Ollie has been great. I think he's great with the players here, and this is one of the. I'm surprised it took this long. I'm surprised this wasn't done within 72 hours of things getting handed over to Heim.
They do it in spring training. It's always at spring training. They always do these at spring.
I thought it would have been a good way to do it in November and just be like, "Hey, he's going to be here, and now here's the flood. Oh, we're going to open the floodgates of all the moves we're going to make."
Okay. Well, they did it anyway.
They did.
It's easier to sit down over a dinner at a nice Jupiter locale and get these details ironed out. Why would they both need to go to a restaurant in St. Louis when it's 0 degrees out? You just wait. Everybody knows it's coming.
I mean,
it happens.
They could have knocked this out in Chicago at the end of September when the
a lot going on
of
at
the year.
time. They had a lot going on, Joe.
Joe's just saying they could have done this when he wasn't in Japan.
Yeah, well.
What are you talking about? You're in the future. Yeah. You knew this for like 12 hours, 24 hours.
So the timing you're suspect on, I think the timing is correct, but the move in general, you're on board. Because, Joe, we've got some Cardinals fans, as you might expect, in the comments saying, I'm never watching the Cardinals until Ollie's gone. Ollie, why is he getting an extension? I've never seen a manager with such a mediocre win-loss record getting an extension. What are your thoughts on kind of the criticisms of Marmal in the role and the folks who would say they don't like this move?
Again, you just have to kind of pay attention to how he handles the team, how he talks to the guys. One of the things that he said this when I was down there a few weeks ago in Jupiter, he was talking about the difference between like this year's team and the team from what would have been 23, when you go from having a team with Wainwright and Yachty and Albert, and he's looking forward more to like this team. Like, this is a challenge. He's open to taking this challenge, and now you'll get to see him actually manage and maybe turn this into a playoff team and show what he's capable of, instead of just being handed, having a roster with, 5 future Hall of Famers. And if you look at what that team was in was it 23 or 22, whatever the last year of Albert was. Yeah, 22. So you look at that, it's like, okay, anybody can get that team to the playoffs, and he was young then. And I think if you look at what he did that year, things probably would change the way he manages with a team like that now. So I think he's open to this challenge. And again, like, you look at these kids, you look at how they're playing right now in spring training. You look at how they were the first week of practice, and I got to imagine it's a lot of fun for somebody like Ollie Marmol to go out there and have these kids where I don't think the pressure is on them to win. When you have Albert and Yachty, there's pressure to win. With these kids, it's okay, go out there and prove everybody wrong. So I think that's what he's going to embrace this season.
Yeah, and when we talked with him at winter warm-up, he was all for like Mason Wynn, Victor Scott, all of the young guys that we've been talking about as the season gets closer. Like, he was extremely excited. He's excited to see the jumps that they can make, and if he's going to be here around for the long term, or at least the near future long term, then I don't see an issue with a signing like this and an extension like this. It just makes sense to have somebody in place that shares the values of your Pobo and is able to lead a group of young guys, somebody that's been around the minor leagues, knows how it is down there, and can kind of take those guys, because there's going to be a lot of minor leaguers that make their jump to the big leagues this year. There's going to be a lot of prospects that make the jump this year, and to have somebody that's young and can kind of help understand outside of just the players in the locker room, because it's a really young group in its entirety, then it's going to be helpful for them to have that trust and build that trust for the future rather than just the season.
I agree with all that. Joe, we are winding down here. Glad you were able to jump on with us, but are there any
My sleep schedule is so screwed up.
I can't imagine. I'm sure it's a lot of fun out there in Japan. Any final thoughts? Anything that you just got to get off your chest before we wrap this thing up here?
No, like I said, this was, I think, the least. And again, in an off season of things, if we sat here and we ranked like what was the least surprising development, and I guess, credit to Heim, when you look at it, like, he's now made a trade in November, December, January, February, and he waited till is it still March 1st over there? Yeah, you guys it's March 1st, so he waited till March 1st to give us another breaking news, another instant reaction show. So can't wait to see what April brings for Heim.
And I'm arguing with people in the comments about how spring training is the right time for extensions. I don't know what to tell you if you don't understand that. But anyway, you got me feisty today, so I'm sure there'll be more of that. But I appreciate you guys for throwing your thoughts out there. I love sparring with the commenters from time to time when that's what's necessary. I love you for it, but
and I'm sure it's going to stop after we finish the show, right? It's not going to continue on Twitter for the next 24 hours, is it?
It literally isn't. I'm going to be not looking at this again. So anyway, no comment from Rockio on my Billikens hat for a Cardinals show either. I'm a little bit.
You know what? I was going to comment on that. The great game last night. You guys can go rewatch the Billikens post game show on STL Sports Central right here on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell button. That way you know whenever we're going live with Cardinals Instant Reaction, whenever we're going live with Billikens postgame, Cardinals postgame, Blues postgame, now that we're back in the second half. Heck, we even got City postgame going off late tonight as they're in San Diego. We got everything going on here in STL Sports Central. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button because we're just big St. Louis fans here.
It's a guy talking off screen. Nobody can even see him.
All right. Put yourself, what are you doing here, Rock? I mean,
we have a 4. I didn't know this. I didn't know we could do this. I didn't know we had abilities to go 4. My apologies.
You got the quad box going. All right. That's going to do it, though, for this.
Did they cover last night? Did the Billikens cover last night, Rock?
Yes. Yeah, but in the game they covered.
There you go. Good teams win. Great teams cover.
My last thought here is that there was a typo in the title of this video. So I didn't do it. It was Rockio. Cardinals had 2 A's in it. CAA. Cardinals. Anyway.
Is that not how you pronounce it?
That's not how you say it. Just 1 A at a time. All right, that's going to do it for this. What are we calling this? The Cardinals Instant Reaction Show here on
Card
STL
Central
Sports
Instant
Central.
Reaction, yeah. Luke and Ethan will be your way Sunday night with a Card Central 365 Sunday edition for that.
They got to do a show tonight?
Yeah, we started that last week. Yeah.
Wow. Well, look at that.
Yeah.
All right, so Brendan, we'll talk about
what are they going to watch on? What other local sports is on Sunday nights that they can
they can come sulk with me about the Blues.
Sad.
They'll probably get a draw.
Brendan. That's
hey,
I'm going to Disney today.
There is bowling that's on tonight. Anyway, all right, everybody. That'll do it. Appreciate you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time on STL Sports Central.